Hello watchers! If you followed my channel lately, you might have noticed that I uploaded two videos, two best of videos of my latest streams on Twitch. The first one basically covers me using the doubler software to actually sing melodies and arrange them so that they add up as MIDI data within my project. And the second one, using those melodic lines to actually follow along a video created by a great YouTuber called Ryan Leach, who explains how you can achieve the epic string sound by starting from a usual 4-voice arrangement, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, going to a full arrangement of 9 voices. And I tried to follow along this video because I found it not to be 100% accessible, but I more or less did well during that stream, and you can follow me along by just watching the video that I'm basically pointing out in the info card and in the description below this video, so feel free to follow along. However, because following me through the stream was kind of complicated as well, I decided to create a full video on how I actually achieved this. I have to add the disclaimer though, the original video is done by Ryan Leach. I will link the video in the description and in the info card. Please go ahead and watch this video first. Although it's not 100% accessible, he has done the original and I won't just be copying his content, but basically he's done the major work. So please go ahead, subscribe to his channel and watch this video. It's really awesome. So before we jump right into the video, feel free to subscribe to my channel as well and leave a comment down in the comment section below this video. Let's dive right into the video. So the entire arrangement goes from step 1, which is the basic start, the arrangement that only got 4 voices, right, to step 6, where 6 can actually differ. You can have 2 separate outcomes, and I did both of them during the stream, and I will play them here in this video for you. Also, at the end of the video, you will find a Reaper project as well as a MIDI file within the description of the video so that you can follow along on your own as well. Let's start with step 1, which is more or less the most complicated one, especially if you cannot see the notes on screen. I had to figure out the notes on my own by listening to the piece and playing them live. If you are interested in how I did this, then feel free to check out the first video, the first live stream best of video in the description. We will now go through the 4 lines that we need for step 1. The first one is the soprano line. I will solo this and play it for you by showing it in the MIDI editor. This is Anakin's and Padme's theme, by the way, Across the Stars from Star Wars. That's the soprano line and also the lead melody. The second line that we need is the alto line, usually played by violins 2, soprano obviously played by violins 1. The alto line is basically this. The third line would be the tenor line, played by the violas. And it sounds like this. And the last line, the fourth voice, would be the cello playing the basses. And that's usually the easiest line, right? So that is basically the first step. Step 1, having all the 4 main voices ready. Let's play them all together in context. By the way, if you're wondering which sample library I'm basically using BBC Symphony Orchestra Professional by Spitfire Audio. You can, however, probably use BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover, which is basically for free. You just have to fill in a survey, and then you have to wait like 14 days or something like that, and you will get it basically for free. And it should be fine, and you should be able to use this to actually play the exact same Reaper project that I'm linking for you in the description below this video. Okay, so that's step 1. Quite easy, right? That's not really epic and not really huge and powerful yet, but we will get there. Let's go to step 2, which is not doing so many different things, but one thing. It's putting the violins 2 in divisi. What does this mean? Divisi basically means, in a real-life context, that you split the section into 2 parts, and the 2 parts play different things. Like if you have a reorchestra sitting in front of you, then you basically just get 1 section for every instrument. Like you've got 1 violin 1 section, 1 violin 2 section, 1 viola section, 1 cello section, 1 bass section. But if you want them to play multiple notes, which we obviously cannot, then you have to split the section into 2 parts or even more parts, and that's called divisi. So what you do is you split them, the violins 2, into divisi. The first section of the violins 2 playing the usual alto line, but the second section playing the tenor line. And now you're wondering, okay, so what does the viola do? Because the viola was previously playing the tenor line. The viola is playing a filler line. If there's 2 voices which are quite separate from each other and you think that there could go a 3rd voice in between, then you basically do this within the filler line. If you feel your arrangement is already quite dense, then you just double one of the voices. So that's basically the filler line. Let's solo it up and play it for you once. Okay. Let's now play everything in step 2, because that's basically it. Everything else stays the same. You just move the tenor up to the violins 2, play in divisi, and you have the violas play the filler line. Let's play the entire step 2. The change is really subtle. Let's move to step 3. Step 3 is actually quite complicated, although it basically aims to add the basses below the cellos. This basically ends up being a bit too heavy in the low frequencies. So what you do is you try to add more high voices. So let's start. The violins 1 are basically still playing the soprano. Nothing has changed here. The violins 2 are still playing alto with the first section, but now the viola has given the filler line to the violins 2, playing in divisi. The violas are playing the tenor line again, but now they are split in divisi as well, and the second section of the violas is playing the alto line too. The cellos are still playing the bass, and the double basses are playing the bass line just an octave below the cellos. Let's continue to step 4, which is doing the total opposite. Instead of adding a voice below what we already got, we are basically adding a voice above what we already got. And that's one of the most important steps here, because this ends up creating this epic cinematic soaring sound that we all know and love. Let's go through all the sections. We've got violins 1 playing in divisi as well now. They basically split to soprano and soprano plus 1. So we're basically doubling the soprano line an octave above. Violins 2 are still in the VC and playing alto line and filler line. Violas are still playing tenor and alto line, and cellos and basses are still playing the basses in octaves. This is starting to sound really huge, but step 5 will go even a step further. Step 5 aims to basically move everything else up an octave as well, instead of, obviously, the uppermost soprano plus 1 line. So the violins 1 are still doing soprano plus 1, so the upper soprano line, and the usual soprano line. So that the entire violin section, the violin 1 section, is basically playing the melody just doubled in octaves. The violins 2, however, now play the alto line up an octave and the tenor line up an octave, in the VC obviously. The violas are playing the tenor on the alto line in the usual registers, and cello and bass are still playing the usual without changing anything. As you might have noticed, we got rid of the filler line now, and that's basically the difference that step 6 makes here. Because we have now two A's that you can go. We can go A step 6 with the filler line, or A step 6 with the melody line doubled. And the only instrument that does not play the VC right now, apart from the basses, which usually don't do this that often, are the cellos. So what we now need to do is have the cellos play the VC as well. Let's go through the first iteration of step 6, which is using the filler again. Violins 1 are still playing soprano and sopranos an octave above, while violins 2 are still playing alto and tenor raised an octave. The violas, however, are playing the alto line and the filler line. The cellos in the VC are playing the tenor line and the bass line, while the double basses are usually playing the basses just lowered an octave. And the last and final step, the second variation of step 6, is known to be the perfect end result, because we will now start to double the melody, the soprano line, again in one of the lower registers, in this case with the cellos, so that we actually have the main melody throughout the entire register of the string orchestra. Violins 1 are still playing soprano and soprano raised an octave. Violins 2 are still playing alto line and tenor line raised an octave. Violas are playing tenor line and alto line. The cellos are playing the soprano line lowered an octave, and the bass line and the double basses are just playing the basses lowered an octave. This is the final end result and the overall epic cinematic sound. Let's listen to this. And that is already it. If you want to follow along yourself, then feel free to go into the video description and download either the Reaper project, in which you can basically insert your own instruments and copy the items over, or get the MIDI file that's linked in the description, import into your own DAW, and start to play around with it yourself. Please don't forget to visit Ryan's channel and check out his other videos as well, where they are really, really awesome and helping me a lot on my way to orchestration. Thanks for watching this video. Until next time, bye bye.